here is the podcast promise. Even if an asteroid strikes us, we'll carry on going.
I like it.
Nothing will stop us broadcasting every week, and our special guest today will be helping us.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
We're here again in the British Interplanetary Society Library. And did you know, Jamie, that 4 years ago tomorrow is the anniversary of the Chelyabinsk asteroid strike?
No way.
You know, the one with all the Russian dashcam
Where has the
things.
time gone?
Yeah, 4 years ago. Today's guest, who is joining us in the library, is Debbie Lewis from Asteroid Day.
Hey, Debbie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to
How
the
are you?
show.
Jamie. Good morning, Matt. Thank you very much.
So, please, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, yeah, my name's Debbie Lewis, and I came across the subject of near-Earth objects while looking for something interesting to write about for my masters that I was studying at the University of Leicester. And my supervisors had told me, you need a subject that will keep you interested, for the duration of the whole process, because you're writing a dissertation for a master's level for about 6-8 months.
Right.
So I started about a year into it. So I was just really looking for something interesting that would just keep me occupied throughout the process, and it didn't so much keep me interested as obsessed. And I think my partner at home thought, when she's finished with all this, she'll put space and she'll put asteroids, and then we can move on. And I thought, well, there's nothing to move on to after you've come into contact with the subject of near-Earth objects. Well, certainly not for me. And suddenly I discovered a whole, I wouldn't say army of people, but there's a veritable number of scientists who I've had the pleasure of meeting. And it's a fascinating subject, and there's some fascinating people working in this field. So it's maintained my interest, really, and I'd love to do a PhD one day, but we'll just keep that as an academic aspiration.
I want to do a PhD as well. I'm trying to work out in what. Yeah. Music or space, I just can't work it out which one.
It's a tough call. So, Debbie, what and when is Asteroid Day?
Asteroid Day is an extremely special movement, and it's been designated by the United Nations, or declared by the United Nations, that June the 30th is International Asteroid Day. And June the 30th is a very, very key date because, of course, that's the anniversary of Tunguska. You mentioned Chelyabinsk, and it's the anniversary of Tunguska, which occurred in 1908. Again, a meteorite, a fireball across the sky, and the 2,000 kilometre square forest that was devastated as a result. And the key thing from that really is that, we were extremely fortunate, okay, not if you're the forest, clearly, but we were extremely fortunate, as humanity and society, that ended up exploding over the forest. Yeah. Had that been over New York, London, Tokyo, or any other major city worldwide, then that would have had quite a devastating effect. And similar, in a way, to the effects that we saw from Chelyabinsk. I mean, you see the dashcam footage, and of course you just see this fireball streaking across the sky. But what you don't see, unless you sort of delve a little bit deeper, and which is where my interest comes in, is the impact effects from that. And it was a very small object, or relatively small object. Yeah. But, buildings were damaged. You see the sort of the roofs off, and of course the glass was shattered, again because of the speed of the impact. So there's a lot of impact effects on the ground, and of course the around about sort of 1,500 people were injured. And so, very simply, there are things that I think you could do to warn, inform and advise society of the hazard. I mean, fortunately and thankfully, Chelyabinsk doesn't happen every day, but that's the other problem, because it doesn't happen very rarely. It's like snow in the UK, and if it's a really, really bad blizzard, then in the UK we can't move.
Yeah, I mean that was one point I wanted to bring up, was that how do we actually plan for a disaster if we're unfortunate enough that an asteroid strike is above a major town or a major city, how do we even start to plan for something like that when we do struggle with things like leaves on the track?
Exactly, absolutely. Well, this is the frustration I have at the moment, because my field is very much in resilience preparedness, or that was a sort of a new Labour term, because Tony Blair didn't like the term emergency, so it was almost like expunged from vocabulary. But the old speak for it is emergency planning and emergency preparedness. So in relation to an asteroid impact event, or anything, from a Chelyabinsk size or even a Tunguska size, if they were to happen tomorrow or within the next few days, then I can tell you now, there's no plans. No one has a plan, and the difficulty with that is that we don't have a mandate to plan. And we're very fortunate, and again I hark back to the scientific community, because they've identified this as a serious science and a serious hazard. And they've identified this, back in the 80s. Here we are in 2017, and has it sort of crossed over from the scientific community into an emergency planning community or even a geopolitical community? No. Sadly.
Is that one of the goals of Asteroid Day to help that facilitate?
Exactly, and that's the beauty. I mean, when I finished my masters, and I had quite a decent mark. I had 85%, so it was like, whoa, I can conquer the world.
Yeah,
with
some
this.
of my students were that good.
I mean, I was lucky. I was able to do it full time, and I sort of ate, slept, breathed it. I was completely obsessed by it. So I didn't do anything else, for 5 months while I was solidly writing this, and so hence obviously the high mark. And once you've put it on a shelf, well, it's no good on a shelf, is it? And so it was for, as a result of the research for my masters, you meet people, and it's more about the people that you meet.
Yeah.
And it's their contacts. And I met a lovely scientist by the name of Dr. Mark Boslow, and he introduced me to Asteroid Day, and he introduced me to Greg Richter's, who's one of the co-founders. Right. And as a result of that, that's how I became involved with Asteroid Day. And essentially it's there purely and simply to raise the awareness of the hazard, but not just the hazard. The fact that, again, with advances in technology, it's not enough just to know that they're up there, but the fact that we can do something about it. It's the only hazard, the only natural hazard that you can identify, discover and track and determine where it's going to hit. Okay, initially along a very a long risk corridor, but there is a technology there to be able to deflect the asteroid away from Earth's orbit, and that's fantastic. But I don't know why more people don't get excited. I mean, I get very excited.
Yeah.
And I just think, well, fantastic. I won't say we're halfway there, but you can't see that for hurricanes. You can't, well, to a certain extent, but you've only got a very narrow warning time. But with earthquakes, none. And landslides, tsunamis, and all of that, you've got a very limited warning time. But what you can do, particularly in relation to tsunamis, of course, is the warning and informing and the advising. So because it's such a rare event, and back in 2004, I think it was, there was a lovely tale of a family who'd survived because the daughter had been taught about tsunamis in school. And so she could see the sea suddenly being, disappearing, being pulled back.
Yeah.
And her parents were like, oh, that's a strange phenomenon. And she said, I know exactly what that is, and we need to get out of here. We need to get to high ground. And she saved the family.
Amazing.
Exactly. And so it's that kind of thing. If we'd have had something similar in place for Chelyabinsk, then you could have said to people, okay, the chances of this happening, extremely low, but when it does happen, it's, it does have quite an impact.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, don't go anywhere near the windows. Just a very, very simple message. Yeah. Because what would like now? Yeah. We see a strobe of light. What you going to do?
I mean, that is one of the things that I think is incredible about Chelyabinsk, was that you walk outside and you could see the cloud left by the meteorite, and you could see it, and it looks actually quite low, even though obviously it's very, very, very high. and you're sort of standing there, and then suddenly the windows start smashing in minutes and minutes and minutes after this thing's gone through, and it seems so counterintuitive. So without education, there's not hope in hell that you're going to get people to
absolutely.
Stay away
You
from
are
the
going to be drawn. You are going to be drawn to it. So as a result of that, it's very important in the same way that they have in Japan with earthquake drills. And you see sort of video footage of children, at school in classrooms, and there's an earthquake alert, and they know instinctively what to do because they're trained. They don't even bother looking out the window.
Yeah.
They don't. They keep away.
Whereas if it happens
under the
over
desk.
here,
Well, exactly.
big bedlam.
Indeed,
Yeah.
and it needn't be. But this comes back to a point I was sort of trying to make earlier, is that particularly in the UK, at the moment, we don't have a mandate for this. So even if there was one heading our way, as in the film 51 Degrees North, it was destination London, then there is no mandate at the moment for emergency planners to roll their sleeves up and think about this. And unfortunately, the hazard hasn't made it onto the risk register.
What?
So it hasn't even been risk assessed nationally. And there's a thing in the UK called the National Risk Register. And unfortunately, it doesn't appear. Fortunately, space weather does, but I'd say this is a bit more extreme.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't classify it as space weather, because again, the impact effects are completely different.
Why is that? Because you've got so many high-profile scientists like Lord Martin Rees,
Yes.
all these people that are obviously extremely behind the project and extreme. And
I was reading the list, yesterday.
Yes.
I mean, Brian Cox, Brian May.
Yes,
It's like, who
yes.
else do you need to be backing it before the government take notice?
Exactly, and this is this for me is a big issue because I'm a fellow of the Emergency Planning Society, and I've addressed the Emergency Planning Society on this subject, and I think most of my fellow emergency planners would like to be able to support this, but again, we don't have the mandate to do so. So I'm hoping that one of the things that will come through following this asteroid day is that we start to create enough initiative so that it does appear on the National Risk Register. If that's my goal really for this year, that's sort of like my New Year's resolution in February, to have, to the campaign and to focus a specific goal, if you like. And I think as soon as it is on the National Risk Register, then the other things can follow.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the moment, if anything were to happen, I mean, obviously, there are emergency plans in place for, fire evacuation, and of course cyber threats and terrorism. So the response to something like an asteroid impact, the effects are largely similar. In that you've got casualties, you've got falling masonry and an explosion and that kind of thing. So there are similarities. So I mean that's the first rule of almost emergency planning. You don't.
That's the irony, isn't it? Is that this is a natural threat,
yes.
not a missile sent from somewhere.
Yes.
Which we would have a billion backup plans for, wouldn't we, if it was a missile? But the fact that it's a natural object.
Yes.
Well, I mean, one question I will always have is there seems to be an enormous range of possibilities with asteroids.
Yes.
So that you could have a fairly major asteroid event of an airborne explosion asteroid that would, say, knock out a town and it would be dreadful. But you could also have a direct hit that would be catastrophic beyond imagination, that was something that we'd never dealt with before.
Yes.
So as a disaster planner, how do you start to sort of chip away at the kind of diversity, at the spectrum of damage that could be caused?
Well, exactly, and that's the challenge, and that's the thing that I think previous discussions that I've had with members of the Emergency Planning Society, and I think earlier discussions that they'd had prior to my involvement with the Cabinet Office, and it literally the uncertainty, because it's not one size is floating around in space, and they will all have a trajectory of such and such. Yeah. So they will all come in at a speed of this, and they will all cause this type of damage. Well, hey, wouldn't that be fantastic? Write a plan, excellent, move on. And that's the uncertainty of the hazard. because it's the size is one uncertainty, and of course at the moment, and this is why discovery and observation is so key to this, because it's the smaller ones that of course are harder to detect, because the surface is very small, so it doesn't reflect the sun, so they're very dark and very small, and those are the ones that we are at more risk.
Well, sneak in, don't they? I mean, what was funny about Chelyabinsk was the fact that it was round about that time everyone was looking at another asteroid that was travelling between us and the moon.
That's right, yes.
And this one just comes in from behind. No one's looking.
Yeah,
no one knows.
Well, it was harder to find because it had come from behind the sun.
Yeah.
And so, forget that. And again, that's again added to the uncertainty of it, because at the moment, you can only look at night sky. And this is why, space-based telescopes are so absolutely fundamentally key to this. So that, for the safety of humanity, we can plot the ones. And there was one asteroid, and I always get the name of this wrong. I think it's the one in 2006, TC8. Someone's going to sort of throw things at the radio or shout at me and go, "Oh, how could you get that wrong?" I can never remember it.
It's all right, we'll take the slack on the
I can tell you where it landed. Thankfully, it landed harmlessly in the Nubian desert. But that was a beautiful thing about that the Minor Planet Centre was able to plot the trajectory.
Or was this the one that was on the horizon? They showed it on the horizon
yes,
program.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And but they had 19 hours warning. And luckily, it was only a relatively small, it was a small object, and it landed harmlessly in the desert. And that's the other thing, because, I think it was 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in sea.
But it was a pretty big explosion, visible from space, wasn't it?
Exactly.
This thing,
and in fact, I think it was a KLM pilot who witnessed it. And at least, so they were able to inform, if you like, this is where I come in with my warning, informing and advising. They were able to inform the airline industry to say, at such and such a time, if you're on this flight path, you will likely to see it. And don't be alarmed, because that's the other thing. Can you imagine if, you're a pilot and you're, in the middle of a long flight, been a long day, and there you are and you're sitting there, and suddenly you just sort of see this flash, you are going to think, whoa, that's going to wake you up. And what am I flying into? And is there another one? And, and what is it? Is it natural?
Yeah.
Is it man-made?
Well, I mean,
is it hostile?
That existential threat, really, the biggest one is one of the Russians or Chinese mistaking it as an interballistic missile, isn't it?
That exactly. And so that's the other problem, because you may end up, understandably, because of all the unrest that we, or shall we say, the lack of harmony in the world today, that it could be perceived to be, a threatening action. Yeah. And of course, we don't really. That on top of a hotbed of of a political situation at the moment, then it doesn't help the situation. So again, this is why it's really, really important that there is an international aspect to this, which of course Asteroid Day, is promoting. And thankfully,
that can be flagged up in time.
Exactly, and thankfully, as a result of the UN, it is an international Asteroid Day, so that countries around the world start to, even if they're just aware of the hazard, so that your initial, if anything does happen, then your initial reaction is that it's a natural hazard rather than anything, sort of military.
Is there a tick box of aims and goals that the Asteroid Day has, as in what's the number one thing or number two thing and number three thing that you really want to achieve with Asteroid Day, or doesn't it work like that, or is it just overall awareness?
I would say it's overall awareness, and the beauty of it is the number of partner organisations and agencies that have signed up. So it's all about sort of generating that momentum. It is, I almost feel a bit like an Asteroid Day evangelist, encouraging people to sort of to sign up and to support, because it's only with public awareness, public support, that you can start to achieve things, that you can start to take the issues forward. Like as I say, my goal for the United Kingdom is very much that this needs to be on the risk register. And again, and that's not to sort of take anything away from what's happened previously. It's not. Because there's a task force report, and of course Sir Crispin Tickell, who was, and still is extremely interested to see how, the government takes that initiative forward. People like myself. We do tend to get a bit frustrated that the speed at which an interest in this subject, in order to do something useful with, is not perhaps as fast as we would like. I mean, and I'm the world's worst because I think, right, okay, I've got it, I know what the hazard is. Right, okay, right, so this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
But it's bringing people to the same place that we're in. And of course, not everybody has the luxury of sort of spending 4 years researching near-Earth objects. But what else is there, really?
So, in an ideal world, what would a mandate look like if this asteroid day? Let's say that there was 100,000 signatures on a petition that meant that the government had to talk about it. Mandate comes out. What would you say that in an ideal world that would look like?
Very much, I think, in an ideal world, it would be that we had the political support, that it was recognised as a serious risk posed to the UK, but equally UK interests. And this is the other thing, that it's not just the damage, because we've talked a lot about the impact effects, the ground effects from an asteroid strike, but equally we've got a lot of facilities and infrastructure in space. Satellites, everyone who uses a sat-nav. Well, if there was an asteroid strike or a meteor strike, I mean, they could be damaged. And of course, in modern technology, a lot of that is all satellite-based. So it's thinking about, our lives are so sophisticated now. And as a result of that level of sophistication, I think they're quite vulnerable. And if we lost everything, space infrastructure, ground infrastructure, just being able to sort of charge up your mobile phone. I mean, I'm lost without Wi-Fi. I mean, how sad is that?
There's a book by a BIS member and someone I believe is involved with Asteroid Day, by Lewis Dartmouth.
That's right, the knowledge.
It's literally one of my favourite books ever. I can't get over how good it is.
Exactly, because that's the thing. Sometimes you think that you are, when you're in isolation studying and researching, etc., you think you're the only person with these views. And so it's been absolutely so refreshing, to meet like-minded individuals, that we have a different perspective on it. But ultimately, we're all part of the same group, if you like. And that's a wonderful thing about Asteroid Day, because, I did think I was a bit of a lone voice. And so it was fabulous to sort of meet not just one person or half a dozen people, but literally thousands of people. And it's growing all the time. And certainly in relation to Asteroid Day, there's about 97 regions around the world, or countries around the world, and they're all starting to sort of host events in order to, again, promote the hazard, but promote the fact that there are things that you can do in mitigation against the hazard. So, that becoming quite worldwide, because that's the other thing, that if anything happened and one country was affected, it would be completely beyond, the financial realms.
Well, I mean, London would be ridiculous because you'd lose a major banking sector for a start off. But I mean, is there insurances in place to sort of cope with that kind of financial shock? Because it would be devastating, wouldn't it? I mean, it would make the banking crisis of 2008 seem like nothing, wouldn't it? So
quite minor, really.
Has anyone actually really looked at the kind of the way that this kind of insurance of basically an entire international body coming together to really rescue the situation? Is that in place, or is it?
As far as I'm aware. And I sit to be corrected. But as far as I'm aware, from the extent of my research, no. There is no funding mechanism in place in order to respond to an asteroid impact effect, the effects from an asteroid impact, rather. However, there are current insurance mechanisms that are in place which I feel could be utilised. And Swiss Re and Munich Re reinsurance, they do sovereign or macro insurance. And the idea behind that is that you identify the hazards first, and then you start to put the funding in place spreading through a number of sort of private and public and organisational sort of financial companies, so that no one organisation, no one country has to take the hit, if you like, both physically and financially. I mean, that's the trouble. You have a natural disaster. I mean, if I go back to 2011, and Australia had some pretty significant severe flooding. And who had the bill for that? The taxpayer. And who suffered? The taxpayer. So you're paying twice. And I don't think, well, it's not just me, you know, the current thinking is that that's not appropriate, that you don't penalise people just because they happen to be the victims of it. They're on the receiving end of it. So, okay, so you've got to pay. So very much, I think, you know, if funding mechanisms could be looked at in relation to macro and sovereign insurance, then that's a way that spreads, you know, the financial burden. And internationally, because again, I mean, you mentioned London. Yeah. I mean, it's an international hub.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be catastrophic.
Exactly.
You don't want it to get to the stage where it's just one of those disasters that happens that then people sit up and go, "Oh, we need to do something about this." With you lot screaming, "Well, we've been trying to tell you.
We've been telling you this since the 1980s. You know that this is happening, and it's almost like the sort of Hurricane Katrina." And I think it was the engineers, the military engineers in the States, that plotted 30 years before Hurricane Katrina that was going to happen. That because the levees weren't sufficient, there'd be overtopping, they'd be inundated, and they needed to do some work on supporting the infrastructure. And they plotted it 30 years. But that's the trouble, you see. Who do you give that message to? It's like, well, it's not for today, chaps, but in 30 years' time, you know, this is going to happen. We're not going to be around, really, are we?
Yeah.
So it's almost, you know, that it's like a relay race. It's like, who do you pass the baton on to? And for me, in relation to asteroids, at what point do you start planning?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things of, it's also the money for it as well. It's like, how do you justify something? I mean, what is the death toll from asteroid strikes currently? It's pretty low, I think.
Well, it is, and it always reminds me from my days as a local councillor when parents can see a danger with crossing the road to a particular school or a particular facility in the community, and they want a zebra crossing. So you do your petitions, and you know, there you are, and no one's died on the road.
Yeah.
So we're not going to put a zebra crossing in. Or a pelican crossing.
Yeah.
You think, well, no, stop. You know, this is the idea. And people talk about being proactive.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're not reactive, we're proactive. And so you say to people, okay, well, what are you doing that's proactive? Oh, we're waiting for something to happen. And then we'll react. Well, it's not proactive.
Yeah, it reminds me of that. There's that really lovely quote or saying that a society grows great when people plant trees in which they will never sit in the shade of. And it's that thing, isn't it? Of what are you going to do for people 100 years down the line? Are you going to do anything? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Exactly what you just said.
What it reminds me of is the Millennium Bug, because it's like what we did plan for the Millennium Bug.
Yeah.
And then nothing happened. Everyone, oh, what a waste of time. It's like, no. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
It was planned for.
Well, that's the thing, because I mean that's the thing with sort of any risk assessment and the uncertainty. You know, that's, you know, you sort of think, well, okay, 50-50 chance. Let's not bother doing anything. But that's the trouble. You see, we don't know. And with the gift of having a crystal ball, sadly they're a bit lacking. And no one would that's what they used to do in the olden days. You know, emergency planning. I mean, you had frizzy hair, blacked out teeth, and runestones. And you know, and would you take somebody seriously with that? Yeah. And so consequently not. So we have risk assessment. So here we are. We've got a perfect framework and a fantastic facility in which you can risk assess. You can risk assess the hazard, and that was the basis of my master's dissertation. I've basically risk assessed it.
Yeah.
So it is possible to risk assess it, and so the work's been done. But it's a case of the next step, so that you can start then to sort of put plans in place, because that's the thing at the moment that although they haven't discovered. You know, a large asteroid that has the potential to wipe out London or any other major city. That's not to say that it's not there.
I was going to say, I mean, what's the percentage do they think of undiscovered, roughly? Undiscovered asteroids? It's quite high, isn't it?
Do you know, you're right. But I have to say, math's not my strong point. I'd only be guessing, and again,
because the large ones, there's about just over 1,000 large ones they think, and they've got about 900 catalogued. Is that about right?
That sounds familiar.
You've got 10% of them still.
Exactly. Well,
and these are game over ones, aren't they?
Well, exactly. This is like Donald Rumsfeld and his known.
Yeah, the
known unknowns. Exactly. So this is a known unknown.
Yeah.
And this is just a classic example of that. Really, it's being prepared for the hazards and the threats that we don't know about. And so many times, you've mentioned before that, after an event's happened, we couldn't have foreseen that. Well, excuse me. If anybody says that in response, should, touching wood here, should anything happen, we couldn't predict that. We couldn't foresee that. Well, that's not valid.
What would be annoying is if there is a minor asteroid impact that has a reasonable amount of devastation and horror, that the scientists will be the first people that everyone that they weren't doing their job. It'd definitely be one of those really unfair things. It's like
it will be, and that again sort of highlights the complexity of the hazard, and why it is just so difficult, I think, for the non-scientific community to kind of grapple with, if you like, because it's so imprecise. And some people are sort of thinking, well, because you haven't found, a large asteroid that's going to flatten us, well, we're not interested. Well, yes, but it's a bit more complex.
It's not really the point, is it?
No, exactly, because you've got a Chelyabinsk type incident, which could happen perhaps once every 10, 20 years, something like that. And then the other thing is that, the beauty of being able to identify these asteroids, if there is a large one, then at least they can plot its trajectory through follow-on observations. They can pretty much see where the object is going, and then with characterization missions, which are really, really important, you can identify what the object is made of.
Right, yeah.
So if it's this solid lump heading towards us, or if it's a loosely assembled, snowball, essentially. So again, the effects are completely different. But this is why the characterization missions are so key, so you know exactly what you're dealing with. And then as a result of that, they can generally predict how long it will take that object to head towards us.
Yeah.
And with that, say you could have 20 years, and they call it warning time, but I call it preparation time. So there are things in place then that you can start to to think about. And obviously the main one, of course, is deflection.
It's monumental, though, isn't it? I mean, if we're talking about space missions, for example, there's AIM and ARM and quite a few of these asteroid missions that actually often get scrubbed because they're so fearfully expensive and difficult to do, and they haven't even built SLS yet, and that's the kind of vehicle you need to actually do these.
I mean,
jobs.
there's a lot of competition. I find just from my experience, in relation to other planetary activity and other things that are, well, in my view, they're not as exciting. But that's not to say that they're not. And various missions to Mars. And I understand the importance for that, but that doesn't float my boat, as it were, to the same extent as an asteroid impact or Rosetta, exactly. And that was the other thing. I mean, I think Rosetta was huge, and the fact that it did garner so much public interest, and of course, the subject of space is hugely fascinating, and it's great to sort of get more sort of young people interested in the subject, so that there'll be leading scientists in about 20 or 30 years' time. They're set to respond to anything that comes our way, and I think anything that can be done to generate that fascination, and that's why people like sort of Brian Cox and of course Dr. Brian May, and various people like them, to try and get people interested. As if the asteroid itself isn't enough to get people interested. You have to sort of get interested people to get other people interested in it.
I think it would be a real crowd pleaser of a space mission, just to attempt deflecting asteroids as a practice mission, because it would be highly inspirational and would show quite a lot of sort of all the techniques that we've been building up over years and years.
Exactly.
And years.
See, that's the other thing that. I mean, that's the thing for me as an emergency planner. When you've identified the hazard, you actually start working on it now. Not when the thing is hurtling towards you, because you haven't got the time.
Well, and it might not work. I mean, it's just like the amount of space missions that don't work. Like the Japanese, we had the Japanese one the other day. The space tether, it didn't work. No. And it's just you don't want that situation.
No, you don't use a real situation as a testing environment.
Space is difficult, especially.
Well, again, that's the thing. There are so many variables, and yes, theoretically, on paper, then the sort of the various deflection methods like the kinetic impact and the gravity tractor, theoretically they should work. And that's a frustrating thing because the scientists want to run test missions, and it's absolutely key that you're right. It's a form of contingency planning. You test the mechanism to see that it will work. I
assume you need lots of funding for that.
Well, again, you see, this comes back to not if one government wanted to do it, then it would completely blow the budget. Whereas if there was international funding for this, and each country, contributed, so much of GDP, they do that with NATO. It's something like 2% or 2.5% of GDP. So it's not. I don't think it's a Mission Impossible situation here.
There is a new body called Asgardia. Is that right?
I saw yes.
Yeah, that was recently in Room magazine.
Yes,
and they're a sort of space nation, and I believe one of their parts of their space nation is that they were going to protect Earth as their mandate.
Exactly, asteroids to respond to the hazard posed by comets and asteroids. I was very excited when I read that.
I can't remember the name of the Russian scientist. He was a Russian scientist,
wasn't it? I've got it here. I have it right here.
Funnily enough, I did join. Really. Oh, excellent.
Do you know? Well, sadly,
I did join when I saw it on Twitter. I thought, this is an amazing idea, and I've completely forgotten about it until seeing this article.
And I thought, well, I haven't done that yet because they were saying about closing it down, but then they've opened it back up again. I believe it's a gentleman by the name of Igor Bailey. Apologies,
I'm
Igor.
glad you tried that
if you're listening, or anyone else who knows him. No disrespect for mispronouncing his name, but I think again that's a wonderful initiative, and I think it's a great initiative. It's just I suppose I wish there was something more Earth-based, and a body that was
already recognised. I mean, you kind of want the United Nations to sort of say, let's set up an actual space protection system that has some kind of meaning that actually everyone signed up to the UN has to take part in helping out.
Yes. Yeah, the irony that so much money would be putting into seeing how we can all get to Mars because we never know when we're going to be in bad luck here. Well, it's like, let's try and stop that bad luck from happening first, Why don't we put a bit of money into that?
It's that joke about what the dinosaurs, how good was the dinosaurs space program? Not very good. That's why they're not here anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yes, I think that was an Arthur C. Clarke quote.
What is it that ordinary folk like us can actually do for this project? What can we do? How can we help? How can we get the word out there? What can we do?
Well, I think the first thing would be to certainly have a look at the Asteroid Day website. If you just Google Asteroid Day, and then if you can sign up, there's newsletters that come out quite regularly. And again, I sort of think in terms of moving this forward, in relation to putting this on the National Risk Register, then I think maybe we ought to possibly think about, and it's something I need to have a chat with Greg, but about initiatives that we can encourage people to perhaps sign up to, so that you've got a groundswell of support within the public, because a lot of it, and I know some from friends of mine who are members of Parliament, they do it on the size of their post bag. So just a lone email from me saying, "Hello,
sort it out."
Yeah.
Can I come and have a chat? They get inundated with requests. So from various sort of interesting people, and so it is. It's on a scale to which politicians will take note of this. So I think that's absolutely sort of key, really. And if people are sort of so excited about the subject, interested in the subject, and sort of perturbed by it, as I am, and certainly my fellow Asteroid Day members are, and we've obviously got the press conference this afternoon, which again there'll be more information coming out from that. But yeah, there's globally and internationally there's a huge sort of movement, and a lot of it has been generated from the UN. But I think the biggest thing for us is that there's no recognised sort of international sort of command and control and coordination. And at the moment it would be very difficult, if something did happen, well, who's in charge, who's responsible? And that's the other thing. And I think really so as much as it is the UN, I think the other sort of format, or the other not venues so much, but I know the other places where this ought to be discussed, perhaps G8 and G20 summits.
Absolutely.
Because they're it's those summits that determine how funding is sort of determined, and what initiatives are funded. So for me, this is sort of civil defence, civil protection. If the UK puts money into NATO, then I don't see why it can't put money into space-based natural hazards that have just a devastating, or just has the same possibility or likelihood of a devastating effect.
Yeah. So we should try and get our listeners to email their MPs.
Yes.
Demand action. That's what I'm saying.
Just get
rise
involved.
up, people.
Rise up.
Absolutely.
I don't want to finish on a downer, so because we have denigrated the poor old asteroid all morning.
Well, actually, no. We haven't denigrated it particularly, but we're just mindful of the effects that it can have.
It's a bit like the ocean, isn't it? Really,
yes.
It's like the ocean is extremely dangerous, but it's also a fantastic,
to give it respect.
beautiful, life-giving place.
Well, exactly. So when they're up there and they're in their rightful orbits, and they're not being perturbed or disturbed or bashing into each other, or that moved by the sun or anything else, then they're absolutely glorious, and we can admire them. But yes, it's when they end up being somewhere where they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah. Although we wouldn't be here without asteroids.
Well, that's the other thing, and being positive. Exactly. This is why the subject is so fascinating, because of course they were the building blocks.
Yeah.
Life came from them.
I always think that they kind of test how robust a certain DNA structure is, and sometimes it's not robust enough, and it keeps coming in, wipes them out. No, you weren't good enough. Maybe we might be the first ones that are. I mean, which if anything, would be human's greatest achievement, wouldn't it? To be robust enough to survive the thing that no other species has ever been robust enough.
Indeed. I mean, in a way, they did us a favour, because can you imagine sharing life with a dinosaur?
That'd be so annoying.
It would, exactly. You take your kids to school and, you lost one.
Go outside Vauxhall High Street, Triceratops going down the...
or you're trying to build your house and it just gets knocked down like it's a block of Lego. So, so that's the,
Jurassic Park would have been to make. Less special effects.
Exactly. How do you train a dinosaur? Anyway, you could go on. But I think that's the other thing, really, in terms of, humanity and society, or how, life evolves and different life forms evolve, then the asteroids had a key involvement with that, but it's to be aware of that we needn't suffer the same fate of the dinosaurs. We will at the moment, and unnecessarily. And I remember again back in the 80s. I don't know if I should mention this. You might edit this bit out, but I've started, so I'll finish. I remember there was an AIDS campaign, big AIDS campaign in the 80s, and it was "Don't die of ignorance." Because obviously it did. AIDS did kill you, but it was encouraging people to look after themselves and to take more responsibility. And that's the other thing. It won't be an asteroid that kills people. It will be ignorance that will kill people. And that's, again, the bit for me that I get.
Absolutely. We have the chance to do something about it.
It's actually heartbreaking, isn't it? I mean, like you said, at the moment, it could wipe us out, and that would be a tragedy, because it needn't.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's been a lot of close approaches. And yes, we've had an incident like Chelyabinsk, and there'll be others. And there was one over Minneapolis, I think, last week, a fireball. And so it's how you perceive these, and for me, they're sort of harbingers of, not harbingers of doom, but they're just knocking on the door going, hello, we're here.
Yeah.
We're out there. So we're not far away. And I think how many of those little sort of door before bang, right, we're opening the door, like we told you.
Yeah.
We told you we were coming.
You wonder what it would take. Yeah, let's hope it doesn't get to that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're only on podcast 22. We've got loads more to talk about.
I've got so much more in my life.
I don't want it to be over. I want to get to at least 100.
Yeah, it's like, well, when I said that us from the future were introducing this, maybe not.
I mean, they do offer great research, in different fields. The subject of asteroids. Thinking back to your bit about let's finish on a positive note, and we haven't done that yet. But but I think being positive, they are a fascinating subject. If anyone listening in is you're studying at school. I mean, I wish I'd known about this subject when I was at school, because for me, I couldn't really, what do I need maths for, and what do I need this for, and blah, blah, blah. And I was, I would say bored, rigid, but I could have been much more engaged. I wasn't very academic. And so it's only later on that I think, I wish this would have fascinated me if I'd have been a kid at school. When somebody sort of started talking about asteroids, I'd be what do I need to do? I want to be a rocket scientist. Right, great.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, but
I think you can make your fortune with asteroids, as we've said before. Some of these things are worth quintillions of dollars of raw materials.
Yes.
Asteroid mining.
Asteroid mining.
Exactly.
That's what we want to get into.
Well, and I think it's an organisation. I think they're based in Luxembourg. And I think
Planetary Resources. Is that
yes, I think so. And they are very much into sort of mining asteroids, because again of the resources that they contain within them. This is why characterisation is just so key.
Well, I think that would help, wouldn't it? If we had asteroid mining, then they would be sending up their these small satellites that would be cataloguing what's exactly on each of these.
My only concern, only slightly sort of. My antenna's gone up a bit.
Yeah.
You start, you go up to a mission to this large asteroid and you start mining it. So you start digging holes into it, you start drilling it, you start pulling it apart. Where's that asteroid gonna go? Because you've changed then its characterisation. You've changed its character. You've changed its properties.
You might have a Kessler effect, won't you, of asteroids, I suppose. You start something off that you've no idea where it's going to end.
Yeah.
So I say, therefore, it's good that we can end with saying again what the website is that people can go to. In case anyone forgot from earlier, there will be a test. What is the website that people can go to check out and sign up?
It's Asteroid Day website, so it's www.asteroidday.org, and that's all lowercase, and Asteroid Day is all one word, and 2 Ds.
And Asteroid Day is again on June the
30th. So this year, Friday, June the 30th.
And you said you had a press release today?
We've got a press conference today.
All right.
It's taking place in Luxembourg, and I'm sort of dialing into it, so I've got 2 minutes.
I was going to say, you better...
Yeah, no, it doesn't...
get a move on if you get to Luxembourg.
No, I'm not going to Luxembourg. No, I'm going to the Cisco headquarters in Finsbury Park.
Oh, nice.
So I've got to be there at 1 o'clock.
They've got there.
Yeah. So yes, I've got to be there for 1 o'clock. So I'm okay. I'm on time. And then tomorrow we're doing one for the UK event and the other regional coordinators events. So that's at the Space Guard Centre in Knighton in Wales, which is the home of the National Near-Earth Object Information Centre for the UK. So we're there tomorrow, but for June 30th we're at Imperial College.
Oh, wow.
So yes, we're running a series of events in Lecture Theatre 1 at Imperial College, which they very kindly donated to Asteroid Day.
Wow, it must be something to do with their alumni.
Quite possibly. But the biggest thing for me, we were talking about the dinosaurs, and of course there was a drilling expedition last year undertaken by a number of people from professors from Imperial College London. One of those people is Dr. Joanna Morgan, and Max Alexander took a photographic record of the Chicxulub drilling of the crater rim, which is absolutely fascinating. So that's going to be a key feature of Asteroid Day. And then we've sort of got a number of sort of people talking to us. We've got Helen Sharman, Dr. Helen Sharman, so of course she's also at Imperial. So it's very much linking, academia, alumni, again, people who've been working in that field, and pulling it all together, that, it's all connected. And again, sort of in relation to the impact effects from these sort of coming down.
Well, that sounds like a fabulous event.
Oh, exactly. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Really, really excited. So, yes, do come and join us.
We should do a podcast on June the 30th from there.
Yes, that would be a very good idea.
Brilliant. That would be lovely to see you both again.
Debbie, thank you so much for coming down to the BIS and telling us about this. Fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No
Thank
problem.
you for listening.
Good luck for the next few days.
And yes, hopefully we've got your message out there into the big wide world. It's quite
Indeed.
Yeah, it's good. We've got even North Korea.
That's true. We have one lister in North Korea.
Oh,
I don't know
fabulous.
how are they doing it.
Yeah, we won't name or shame anyone for obvious reasons, but yeah, keep listening, please.
Yeah.
Tell your mates.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.